Hi everyone, my name is Teresa Carper and I am the Ohio SADD coordinator, and we're welcoming you to Webcast Wednesday. Now today we have kind of an interesting topic. Many people, when they think about this topic, they're not going to think necessarily traffic safety, but truthfully, it's probably one of the most important parts of traffic safety. You'll see what I mean in a moment. We have a fantastic guest today. Her name is Kimberly Schwinn, and I've known Kimberly for quite some time and have worked with her, and she's got some amazing information to share with us today. And so we hope you stay tuned and learn something really important, because I can tell you that I've learned a lot from Kim. Now, Kimberly is the Senior Manager of Public Affairs with AAA Ohio Auto Club. Kimberly has been with them for 10 years, and she serves some of her duties there is she does government affairs, she does all the public affairs, she manages all of that there, and she's a passionate traffic safety advocate. I've served with her as she co-chairs the Ohio Graduated Licensing Coalition, and she has also been a team lead for the Strategic Highway Safety Plan for older road users, emphasizing this particular area, and strives to partner with people across Ohio, because her number one goal is what our goal is so often, and that's to reduce the number of crashes, the injuries and deaths that we see each year. And she does a fantastic job doing that, and we love working with her here in Ohio, and you're going to love her too. Now, the kind of cool thing about Kimberly before she joined AAA is she worked as a reporter and meteorologist. And for those who live in Ohio, you know how important weather is to us. So she had a big job there, and she did it with WHIO, News Center 7 in Dayton. And she also worked for the Ohio News Network and a station in Zanesville, WAIZ. So Kimberly, I am going to let you take over from here and tell us about that important safety topic that you have when it comes to traffic safety.
Thank you so much, Teresa, and thank you all for having me here today. I'm just honored to be here. This is such an important topic. You know, especially this year, we've seen a lot of our vehicles sitting for an extended period of time, and so we've seen a lot of extra issues with them, and so we're going to get into all of that. But a lot of people don't really realize that car maintenance goes hand in hand with safety. I mean, think about it. If you have a flat tire and a blowout, you could end up in the ditch. So some really scary things can happen if you don't maintain your car. So it's extremely, extremely important. And so AAA actually has gone out and inspected teens' vehicles for several years. Teens actually have the highest crash rate of any other age group, which is really, really scary. And it's that inexperience that makes teens so vulnerable behind the wheel. And so you combine that inexperience with the fact that, let's face it, many of us in high school drove those older, less reliable cars, maybe hand-me-downs from our parents. So you partner that inexperience with those older vehicles, maybe haven't been kept up so well, and it's kind of just a recipe for disaster. And so AAA really wants to help and work with teens to make sure that, first of all, let's empower teens to know how to check the oil, how to check the tires, how to do some basic car maintenance, and then what to look for. How can we make sure that our cars are well maintained and that they're going to run for us and be reliable for us? So again, we've gone out and we've inspected teen cars at high schools for a number of years, and this is actually the inspection sheet that we use. So we look at everything from the lights to the fluids to the belts and the hoses, the battery, general things. Does your horn work? What about your wiper blades? Are they clearing the glass? That's really important. Especially as we get into winter with that salty spray, you want to have good wiper blades and washer fluid. The mirrors, are there cracks in them? Are there cracks in the windshield? And do you have an emergency kit? And then of course the tires, really important because they are the main point of contact with the road. So we look at all of these things when we go out and talk to teens. And so this is all really important when it comes to safety on the roads. So I will now open it up for any questions that you may have.
Well, Kimberly, thank you so much. And I know that you have been out to our schools here in Ohio. And I know they're really grateful when you come in. And I was one of those teens that had a very old car that, well, it didn't look really great. It got me back and forth. And so, but I've learned a little bit from you recently about tires, and I need new tires. But what are some of the biggest issues that you think that your automotive technicians tell you that they see with the vehicles? What's that one thing that sticks out that maybe you see more often than not that people just overlook?
Sure, and I actually have a slide on that. When we went out to high schools, what we found was lubricants and fluids. And when I talk to our technicians, so AAA Ohio Auto Club has a network of repair shops that we own. And then we also go out and approve repair shops that meet high quality standards for cleanliness, reputation, customer service, insurance, certification of technicians. And so we call those our approved auto repair shops. So when we talk to those technicians as well, they say this pretty much matches what they see coming into the shop. So the main issue that we see are with those lubricants and those fluids. So the washer fluid, the engine oil, the brake fluid, power steering fluid, antifreeze or coolant. All of those things you really need to be paying attention to. We also see a lot of issues with that general category. Remember on that inspection sheet that was, maybe cracks in the windshield or the mirrors, or maybe the wiper blades need to be changed, things like that. In addition to that, the batteries and the tires and the lights kind of all in line, and those are also really important for safety on the roads. We don't see a whole lot of issues with belts and hoses, but they are out there, so they're still important things to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Hey, Kimberly. So I have a question about some fluids as well. We always had this question about oil changes and how often they should be done. And now that a lot of cars are going synthetic, it messes with people's brains. So can you tell us a little bit more about oil changes and how often we should be doing those?
Yeah, definitely. And so, okay, when we talk about the lubricants and the fluids, again, the number one issue that we see, the best thing that you can do is to look at the owner's manual and to make sure that you are following the service schedule that's outlined in that. A lot of people don't look at that. A lot of times now it's digital if you buy a vehicle. So it's really important to stick with that, factory maintenance schedule. Now I will say, older cars, always used to require it was 3,000 miles or 3 months, right? So we would always take our cars in to get an oil change, 3,000 miles or 3 months. Older cars also have differences between normal changes and then severe service changes. So if you are driving shorter trips, 5 or less miles per day on a consistent basis, if you live in an area where it's either extremely hot, extremely cold, extremely dusty, if you are driving in sustained stop and go driving, or if you're carrying heavy loads, maybe you're trailering something, then you would have to change it more often. So newer cars, all that is kind of out the window, except for those severe service standards. You still might have to change it more frequently. But newer cars, you can go anywhere from 5,000 to even 10,000, sometimes 15,000 miles between changes. But you just really have to pay attention to what your vehicle requires. Also, a lot of newer cars are going to have a notification. So they have oil life monitoring systems that are going to tell you when your oil needs changed. So, you'll see on the dash, it'll say, however much percentage you have of oil life, and then it'll tell you when it needs to be changed. And it actually, in newer cars, will look at the quality of the oil and tell you exactly when it needs to be changed. So if you don't drive a lot of miles, even on newer cars, many automakers say that you should get your oil changed at least once a year. And it's really important because when you bring your car in to get an oil change, they're going to look at all of the other fluids. And so remember, you can see on this inspection sheet, there's other fluids that we need to pay attention to. And so getting an oil change is kind of like going into the doctor for a checkup, right? You get the oil changed and they're gonna inspect the car, they're gonna top off all the fluids, and they're gonna make sure that you're good to go. So it's really, really important to make sure that you're keeping up to date on oil changes, even if that interval is stretched out a little bit longer. Also important to know, what type of oil your vehicle takes. You can see that on the cap. This may not mean a lot to people. Again, if you go to a reputable shop, they're going to take care of that for you. Also, with these longer intervals, it's important that you're checking your oil once a month. So we recommend once a month. And that's because cars can use a lot of oil and you may not realize it. So you want to make sure that you're still checking your oil. So here's how you do that. You park on a level surface, make sure the engine's cool, so don't do it right after you finish driving. Open that oil cap, pull out the dipstick, wipe the dipstick with a rag or a cloth, then put the dipstick back in, pull it out again, and you should see the oil should cover the dipstick close to the full mark. If not, then you need to put a little bit more oil in and maybe get somebody to help you, or again, if you're not sure, you could even take that into the shop.
Thanks, Kimberly. My name is Carrie. I'm the Colorado SADD State Coordinator. We know that lights are very important in the dark. We just had last week's theme was dangers in the dark, drowsy driving and night driving. Tell us a little bit about headlights and how important they are and how we can make sure that we're keeping them in great condition so that we get the best visibility possible.
Yeah, that's a really great question because lights are extremely important. And so we're talking about headlights, but keep in mind that there's lots of other lights on your vehicles. So the headlights certainly help you see at night, and it sounds like you've dove into that in a little bit more detail. But you also have to think about the turn signals, the tail lights, the brake lights. They help other drivers to see you and to anticipate your moves. So if they're out, another driver behind you at night doesn't know what you're going to do. If you're braking, they may not realize you're braking if your brake lights are out, and they may run right into you. And that can even happen during the day because drivers are trained, we look for those brake lights to see if somebody's stopping. So again, driving with faulty or broken lights can really lead to a serious crash. Even with turn signals, your turn signal's out, someone doesn't know you're turning. They can't anticipate your moves. So it's really important to make sure that all of your lights are in working order. So we always say, grab a buddy. If you don't have a buddy, you can back up to something, a garage door, or even in the garage. Just don't keep your car running in the garage too long. And you can check to see if the lights are running, but really best thing to do is grab a buddy, check all your lights, make sure that they're in working order. The other thing is that, headlights should be clean. So this is important, and a lot of people don't really realize this. So next time you have a chance, go out to your car and look at your headlights. They should be clear. Headlights aged, if they're aged and they're yellowed, they can actually reduce the light output by more than 80%. So you see that deer there? You probably would not see it in time to stop. So that's really scary. And hitting a deer, a lot of damage, could cause injuries, certainly not only to the deer, but to yourself too. So if your headlights look like this, if they're cloudy, well, what do you do? And if your car sits outside a lot, there's a good chance that maybe, they could be cloudy. They age over time. So what you can do is you can either purchase a DIY restoration kit, take it to your auto repair shop, and restore those lights. That's going to help to restore a lot of the light output and help you to see at night. And this is, again, really important as we start heading towards the fall and the days start getting shorter. We're going to do more driving at night. Make sure your headlights are clear. Make sure all your lights are in working order because it really can help keep you safe on dark roads and help prevent a crash.
This is some really great information. Thank you so much for sharing with us. My name is Dylan from Louisiana, and I definitely remember my first car giving me some trouble with its battery. So how long do car batteries last, and how do I need to know if mine needs to be changed?
Yeah, that's really, really timely. I know in many parts of the country, we have had an extremely hot summer, and that came after a lot of people, they had their cars sitting for months. I know myself, I've been working from home since March, and so I've used one tank of gas between March and July. So I really have not been driving my car much. And so we have seen a lot of dead batteries. So cars like to be driven. Cars need to be driven in order to charge the battery. So it's really important to get that car out at least once a week, drive it for 10 to 15 minutes. That's going to help charge the battery. So how long your battery lasts is going to depend on how much you drive it, the climate that you're in, the actual vehicle and the battery. But typically, car batteries last about 3 to 5 years. So we always say if your car battery is 3 years old or older, it's in danger of failing. So you want to make sure when you get it in for that oil change, remember that's your checkup for your car, have the battery checked. If you only go in for an oil change once a year, good idea to get that battery checked twice a year because you don't want to be stranded with a dead battery. So many people have been this year. We have seen a huge increase in the number of dead batteries. So again, leaving that car sitting for extended periods of time drains the battery. So you want to drive your vehicle 10 to 15 minutes once per week to help keep that battery charged. You also want to look at the terminals. So check for any corrosion on the terminals. And do this when your car is cool. Again, you don't want to be doing this right after you've driven the car, but you can use a wire brush to remove any corrosion. You can even pour some Coca-Cola on it. That'll help. But again, make sure that vehicle is off and that it's cool before you do that. Always wear safety goggles when you're doing anything with a battery. And, always, you can even ask for assistance if you aren't sure.
Hi, Kimberly. I'm Michelle. I'm in Arizona, so that's a really timely reminder for me here in our heat to check my battery. We know that tire safety is really important, and having our tires in good driving condition is something that we need to make sure of to make sure that we can have a safe drive wherever we're going. So what do we need to do to look for in our tires? How do we make sure that our tires are safe before we start driving?
Yeah, that's a really good question because as I mentioned earlier, tires are the main point of contact with the road. So vital, and you want to make sure that all of your tires are in good condition and have adequate air pressure. So what does that mean? Well, you should check your tire pressure and reinflate once a month if necessary. In the heat, probably won't have to reinflate too much. As it gets colder outside, you tend to notice the air pressure decreasing in your tires. Underinflation is a leading cause for tire failures, and tire failures on the road can be extremely dangerous. So you want to make sure that your tires are in good condition. It's really, really important. So again, in the cold weather, you can see tires losing about 2 pounds of air per month. So how do you check your tire pressure? How do you know how much air should be in the tire? So what you do is you open your driver's side door and you'll see a sticker like this. And PSI is how we measure tire pressure. So you can see here it says front cold tire pressure should be 32 PSI. Rear cold tire pressure, 32 PSI. And the spare, don't forget the spare. A lot of cars don't have them anymore, but if you do, you want to make sure you check that as well, just in case. And so now we know how much tire or air should be in our tires. Now, how do we fill them? And I should mention before we move on, never go off of the air tire pressure that's listed on the tire. Always use this sticker to determine how much air should be in your tires for your vehicle. So you take one of these, and when I was a kid, I had no idea what this was. It looked like a pen to me, maybe, but there was no pen. I don't know. This is actually a tire gauge. And so what you do is you put that little round end on the tire pressure valve on the tire, and you can see right here, there's the valve. You just remove the cap and you put that round end on there, and the other end will pop out and show you how much tire pressure is in your tire. So that's the PSI. So this one looks like it's in pretty good shape. Checking tire tread depth. So tread depth is also really important, especially again, you know, wet roads, snowy roads, you know, any kind of weather, really important to have good tread depth. So you can take a quarter, and if the tire tread depth covers Washington's head, then you're in good shape. If you see all of Washington's head, probably need to replace the tires. Now you can also use a penny, but the quarter is going to ensure that you change your tires before they get to the really unsafe level. If you use a penny, by the time you can see all of Lincoln's head, your tires are really unsafe. So this helps you to change them a little bit before to keep you safer on the road.
Thanks, Kimberly. That's really great information. One more question from me. I was wondering what we should keep in an emergency kit. How do we put that together? I know there are some that are available that we can buy. That can be kind of spendy maybe.
Yeah.
Should we put in an
Yeah, we really recommend having an emergency kit just in case, right? So you never know what's going to happen. You always want to be prepared. So jumper cables, I would say number one thing you should have are jumper cables, because again, we've been seeing a lot of dead batteries, so really important. You know, reflective triangles or lights in case you do break down and you're on the side of the road. You want to make sure that you're visible. You know, a first aid kit, you never know when you might need that. Basic toolkit, bottled water. And so I always just bring my water bottle, you know, with me in the car. Just make sure that you have water for yourself and everybody in your family, and even some snacks, you know, if you're traveling with a dog or cat, you know, even bring some food along for them. And, you know, these days, you know, with the pandemic, it's also important to have some pandemic supplies. So some things that aren't even on our typical inspection sheet. You know, I always make sure that I have disinfectant wipes and hand sanitizer and some plastic grocery bags. So when I need to get gas, which I've only done again once in the past, however many months, but if you need to get gas, then you don't have to touch the pump. So you want to put that grocery bag around your hand and use that to touch the pump. So that can be helpful. Also make sure that you have face coverings for everybody in your vehicle, just in case. You never know what's going to happen. Earlier this year, my husband took the kids to get some mulch, and they ended up breaking down and they were stuck on the side of the road. And so it was a good thing that they had their face coverings. They had lots of water, so it was a hot day outside, so they were, you know, well prepared. But it's a really good idea. You never know, again, what could happen, so you want to make sure that you're prepared for anything.
Cool, thank you.
Hi, Kimberly. This is Lynn out in California. That's great information, and I bet by the end of this week, every car in my family is going to have an emergency kit with those items in it. So thank you for that. You mentioned that your husband's car broke down. What should we do if our car breaks down?
Yeah, I mean, it happens and it can be really scary. I don't know if you've ever been in a breakdown on the side of the road, but cars go a lot faster past you than you would think. So what do? Where should you go? Well, the best thing to do is stop as far off the roadway as possible. If you notice your vehicle starting to fail, maybe you have a flat tire, try to get off the roadway. That's going to be the absolute safest thing to do. Otherwise, you know, just try to get as far off as possible. out of the lane of traffic, because a lot of times people are distracted. They may not see you. So it's really best to get into a parking lot off the roadway if you can. So what can you do to ensure that other motorists can see you? So you want to make sure that you are visible. So turn on your four-way emergency flashers. You can also pop the hood or place warning triangles only if you feel that you can get out safely. If you're on the highway and you couldn't get off the road, don't do this. You know, just turn on your flashers, but you never want to stand in front of or behind your vehicle, because that could be extremely dangerous if a car were to not see you and to run into you. So when you need to call for help, right? So you make sure first you're in a safe location. When you call for help, you want to make sure that you're describing the problem as thoroughly as possible, providing your phone number, your exact location. I had an instance about 11 years ago when I had a flat tire on the side of the highway in the middle of the night. And I got a little bit disoriented in knowing, you know, what mile marker am I at on the highway? And so I told them the wrong mile marker. So it took them longer to get to me. So it's really important that you pay attention when you're driving on the highway to those mile markers. Pay attention to roadsides. Pay attention to your surroundings so that you can tell them your exact location. That's going to help get to you a lot quicker. Your vehicle description, so make sure that they know what vehicle you're in, and your license plate number, again, just so they know what vehicle you're in. Again, what's the safest place to be while waiting for help? Typically in your vehicle, but that's not true 100% of the time, right? It depends on where your vehicle broke down. So maybe it's going to be safer to get out of your vehicle and get way off the road than it's going to be to sit in your vehicle. But typically, it's going to be safest in your vehicle.
All right, that's more great information. Thanks so much.
Hi, Kimberly. This is Kevin, also from California. I think that's some really cool information. I had a friend a couple weeks ago who was driving, and they asked me, "Hey, is this dash light board okay on my car?" And I looked at it, and it was something that was pretty not too urgent. But I know a lot of teens have a lot of questions about those dashboard lights. Are there any common dashboard lights that people should be aware of, and which might or might not be so urgent?
Sure, yeah, and I don't have slides readily prepared for this one, but you know, I think that the dashboard lights are really important, and you should be aware of which ones. You know, the check your engine light is always important. So look in your vehicle owner's manual, and that's going to tell you a list of the different dashboard lights that are on your vehicle and what each of them stand for. So that's always a good thing to do. You know, if a light pops up, don't just ignore it and hope it'll go away. If a light pops up, it's something that you need to address. So make sure that you are, you know, looking into what it is. Look at your owner's manual, take it to the repair shop. You just want to make sure that you address it. You know, also you'll get like a check the oil light sometimes, tire pressure light sometimes. So there's a variety of different lights that you may see, but the best place to go is your owner's manual.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Well, Kimberly, I'm so glad you were with us today. And I will tell you that most new drivers, and including myself when I was younger, had no clue about many of the things that you've talked about. And unfortunately, I had to learn them the hard way. There's nothing worse than being stranded somewhere. And at that time, there were no cell phones. So it made it even more interesting to trying to get help. So I want you to know how important the information that you've provided us today is to not only our new drivers, but anyone really. We all need to be reminded on occasion how important taking care of our vehicle so it can take care of us when we're on the roadway. And again, I thank you so much for being with us today. And we look forward to working with you again in the future.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored, and I hope that you got something out of this. My information is on the screen, so if anybody has further questions, feel free to reach out.